Hi, I'm Stephanie Hammonds.
Hi, I'm Isaiah Hammonds.
I have Marfan Syndrome. That's a connective tissue disorder that affects all of the connective tissue in the body. While that can be a problem for bones and joints and other areas of the body, the biggest danger is the heart. And I have a few congenital defects that come from the Marfan Syndrome and one that actually doesn't. I was born with a mitral valve prolapse, which started all the trouble, causing the heart murmur, which they first heard and sent me to a doctor for. At that point, they discovered that I had an issue with my aorta. As I grew, I began to experience rapid heartbeat symptoms, which eventually were diagnosed as something called supraventricular tachycardia, or SVT. Later in life, I was diagnosed with an aortic aneurysm, which needed to be corrected with surgery. My parents explained it to me as best they could, but I really didn't understand it. I do have a very clear memory of my very first echocardiogram. I was 3 years old, and I remember seeing my parents holding hands and looking very worried. And it's a very clear memory, and I think about that, and I think about what my parents must have gone through dealing with that. Right around the time I turned 14, my mother read an article, and it was about the Olympic volleyball player Flo Hyman. She was playing a game in 1986 in Japan, and she died on the sidelines. And as it turned out, she died from an aortic aneurysm that ruptured. In this article, it was revealed that she actually had Marfan syndrome, the same condition that I have. Well, my mother had never heard of that. None of us had. But my mother looked at the picture of this woman and the description of this tall, thin athlete with this unknown heart condition, and my mother said, "That sounds an awful lot like my kid." So my mother is the one who brought this to the attention of our pediatrician and the pediatric cardiologist, and they said, "We're pretty sure Stephanie has Marfan syndrome." When I turned 20, they decided that I needed to see the cardiologist every year instead of every 2 to 3. Now it became even more real because I couldn't forget about it for 2 to 3 years if I tried. It was every year, and I knew I had to take time out of school or work and make sure that I had that appointment done, and hope every year that nothing had changed. Right around the time I was deciding to possibly go back and apply to medical school again, I ended up needing scoliosis corrective surgery when I was 26. After that surgery was over and I had recovered, I looked at my mom and she looked at me about a year after that back surgery, and we said, well, that's gotta be the worst thing we're ever gonna go through. There's no way you're gonna need heart surgery, Stephanie. That's just too ridiculous. After my back surgery, I met my now husband, Jake, and we decided that we both had the desire to become a physician. And we went to Antigua, American University of Antigua Medical School together.
I think that the person who's dealing with it is dealing with it all the time, and you're only dealing with it when it's worse. When you have a test coming up and it's like, oh geez, has it changed this much? Has it changed a millimeter? Has it changed? You start to worry, is there something major coming up that we have to prepare for? There are a lot of times when you're dealing with a condition that you are worried. It doesn't really stop. It just goes up to a different level than your day in, day out.
And in August of 2007, we came home on a break, and I went to my annual echocardiogram. And for no good reason, my husband, Jake, accompanied me, just gave me a ride there. And they scanned me and they said, this aneurysm has grown significantly in 1 year. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and we both knew what that might mean. I had the surgery on November 8th, 2007. My husband came out to visit. My sister joined us. My father joined us. I had all the support I could possibly want. So I'm sitting here today talking to everybody and living my life very happily because of my mom, and I tell her this all the time. My mom has always been my greatest supporter and advocate. My family is wonderful, my husband is wonderful, but I would not be here without my mother. So I'd like to read a short letter that my mother wrote regarding her thoughts on everything we've been through together with my chronic condition and my heart condition and my surgeries. The hardest thing a parent can experience is to learn that their child has a serious health condition. My first thought was, how can I help her? I had never heard of Marfan Syndrome, and I knew I had to search for explanations about the condition and ways to help. Stephanie and I did so much to search for answers, and once we knew what had to be done, we were determined to find the best diagnosis and possible treatments. Her attitude was amazing and helped us find answers. She was very brave and determined to do whatever had to be done. We would never have thought of doing differently. I thank God every day that she survived a life-threatening condition with great results. Signed, Gina Mazloom. I would like to thank the American Heart Association for everything they do, for the awareness they create, for the contributions they make. I think the work the American Heart Association does is absolutely incredible.